Hey, I want to make sure, by the way, if I get this right, brother Bryant. Is it Abiquiú? How do you say it?
It is Abiquiú, actually.
Abiquiu.
Uh, yes, Abiquiú.
Okay, now having gotten Abiquiu down, I want to tell everybody out there listening, I want to welcome Brother David Bryant. Lindsay, Lawler, and I want to welcome Brother Bryant. He, of course, is known as the Desert Monk, is a Benedictine monk at the Monastery of Christ in the desert, nestled in the Chama Canyon in New Mexico, a convert to Catholicism. He has answered his lifelong calling to monastic life in 2000 and has lived there since 2015. That is all I will give away, Lindsay, because there's so much more of this story to tell. Brother Bryant, say good morning to my co host, Lindsay Lawler.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. I'm excited about this conversation on so many levels. Um, so many levels. But I'd like to start here because, first of all, I'm a songwriter in Nashville, so your work as the choir master on the music side certainly is of interest to me. But if you can, let's be very basic before I go very deep with you. How does one like you end up as a monk in the desert? Can you take me to that moment in your childhood where you can look back and be like, oh, that's the child that was going to end up here, if that makes sense?
Ask that question. What I tell you is probably just going to lead to another thousand questions. So,
Perfect.
what what basically happened? Remember, I'm a convert, so I knew nothing about monastic life or what a monk was, or even that there existed a Catholic church or anything outside of the Baptist church where I was. I don't think I was much of a what I would call a religious person growing up. I mean, I went to church, because that's what we did. So there was nothing special about it. I was in the Boy Scouts, which was very important to my calling, actually, believe it or not.
I do.
But yeah, it was a weird thing. I was 8 years old. I can remember it. Don't know why, but I remember it. And my idea was to hop on a boat and kind of go around the world, kind of just telling people about who God and Jesus was. I mean, that's it. It was nothing else. I mean, nothing else popped up. It was just that, and that's where it started from there. And it just kind of sat there, and it was in the back of my mind. And as things went on, and I'm leaving out a lot of details, so you can ask them after I'm done. I'll quickly get you up to speed. I just kind of had that little thing in the back of my head, and then later on, I got into scouting and met really good friends. I met a friend who actually was Methodist, and she sung in a choir, and she invited me to sing in the choir. And then I moved over to the Methodist church, and I learned about music. I was already singing in choirs in my high school. Notice I'm skipping out a lot here. And music became an important part of my life at that time. And I started singing in the choir in her church. And then things just kept going from there. And I got a new calling. I met a friend who was going off to the seminary, and we just became friends. He never said, hey, you need to join the Catholic Church. No, he was just a really good friend, and we're still friends. And he comes here to the monastery once a year for a 2-week retreat. We go hiking and do all kinds of stuff. But yeah, he was never forceful. He's just kind of like, yeah, he even came to the Methodist church to hear me sing. So there was nothing big, nothing happened. It's just God's little calling. He just, hey, try this, try that, try this. So yeah, that's where it kind of started with those two things: meeting a friend, two friends actually, and music.
Let,
That's what started the whole monastic thing.
let me let me
So
let me follow up with that, brother David. Just to kind of ask you about your experiences in scouting. You say try this, try that, try this new thing. A lot of people will join Scouts and then not finish the deal, not seal the deal, and get to Eagle. Can you talk about why it is you like scouting so much? I mean, the idea that you're out there hiking in the woods, hiking in the mountains, given what you do now, makes perfect sense. But talk about the gravitational pull into scouting too, to being a part of something, I guess.
so I've been seeing that with some friends here, and many are studying and doing research about the environment, how it affects the monastic life here. we've kind of been talking about scouting thing and why it's not so popular now. Actually, for me, growing
Brother Bryant, I'm gonna let them pick up the phone for you for a second. We're gonna see what's going on with your connection over there. I want to make sure people hear this beautiful story in full, guys. If you're just joining us, Brother David Bryant of OSB, by the way, is a Benedictine monk of the Monastery of Christ in the desert. Joins us this morning. He's nestled over in the Chama Canyon Wilderness over in New Mexico, and he joins us this morning. I have a feeling that
that might be why it's hard to hear. He is at a monastery in the desert mountains of New Mexico. So we're going to give him grace as the Lord does every day.
Yeah. And by the way, Lindsay, the fact of the matter is I think you might be destined to go over there and spend a couple of days, if not 2 weeks, because he's originally from Tennessee. And it's funny, you went from the West into Tennessee. Maybe it's your time to go from Tennessee into the West and spend some time with him.
Listen, he and I could make beautiful music in the mountains together. I am all about this becoming my new spiritual practice. And do we have him back yet?
Not yet, but
Okay.
we're getting that set up right now. And by the way, I can't wait to kind of talk about the fact. Remember, I told you, and I wanted to kind of we got you back on, Brother Bryant.
Yes, I am here.
Fantastic.
So, Brother Bryant, I thank you for that. We're going to call it the brief overview, because we would, if we went into the whole story, we wouldn't be able to go on and dive deep with you during this interview or conversation, as we like to call it. But I you know what, I think what's nice to note here from a relatability factor is that this isn't something you woke up when you were born. I mean, you were born and this has been your path your whole life. I mean, I think ultimately it is, of course, your path your whole life. We're all on the path we're supposed to be on. But I think the fact that you were a convert and you came to this later in life shows to me that it's something that you were so chosen and called to, that you found it later in life. And for me, I grew up going to church every week, multiple weeks, church camp, all the things. And then I didn't go for a long time when I was an adult and on my, out on my own. And then I've come back to it, but I've come back to it to find my spirituality. It's met me where I am. Jesus and I, God and I, the Holy Spirit, we've met. I don't want to say on my terms, but in a way that it resonated with me, that it made me feel comfortable and safe to come back, if that makes sense. And so I think Also, I love you talking about it from a music standpoint, because that's where I find a lot of my spirituality is going out in nature and having writing songs and connecting in that way. So anyway, can you just talk with all that in mind too? We have a very large truck driving audience. And I'm going to circle back to them spending time alone, as you do as well, and what that looks like. But before that, for anybody maybe that's struggling and finding their connection to something bigger, call it God, put the universe, your spirituality, whatever words you want to fill in, somebody that is connected but doesn't know why or how, what can you give it, like a message of hope and peace for someone like that? Just a simple way to start their day as they're seeking, that maybe over time will bring them closer to their own connection.
Well, I think that the best thing is that we've got to remember, I think there's so many ways I could go with this, but let me get to I think the most important one for me is that I'm not the center of the world, and that there's something bigger than me, but there are people who live around me. Those things are important to realize that we're all part of we're on this world together, and we all need to there's so many ways I can go with this. There's quite a bit there. You're asking me. I'm trying to figure out how I can do this without going into this. Yeah, without going to this long thing. Let me back up here for a second. When I get up in the morning, I have to remember that I'm not serving myself. I'm serving the people around me, no matter what I'm doing. When I go into that church, I know I have a beautiful voice, but it actually gets on my nerves when people tell me that I have a beautiful voice. it's kind of it's a very weird thing when people start talking about, oh, you sing so good. I'm like, look, I'm doing this because it's not for me, it's for you, and it's for God. I'm praising God with what I do, no matter if it's singing, no matter if I'm going out in the garden and working all day. It's not for myself. I enjoy what I'm doing. Doesn't mean I like doing it every day, but who's this for? And then once I get that focus off of myself and realize that it's for everyone else around me, no matter if they like me or not, things tend to go a lot better for me. And it's that you've mentioned it already. There's that isolation. That's that time of getting away. That time of getting away for me is where I can rejuvenate. Now, is this for everybody? No, but I think it's an important part of being a monk, an important part of being in the world, because for you all that are out there, technology is taken over. And we have to find a way to isolate, to bring ourselves back, to get away from that, go out into the woods, enjoy it, smell the fresh air, see what God has created, realize that there's something greater out there than the virtual world that we're being forced to deal with. So isolation in the monastery, outside of the monastery, is important. And I think that word isolation is very has some negative things. I can say this for sure because I'm not sure if you've read this, but I'm actually moving over to be a hermit. The community looked at how I was living and the things I was doing, and they actually said, "Hey, would you like to be a hermit?" And I said, "Well, let's wait about a year." And then I went back at it, and I was like, they actually came back and said, "Are you sure you want to wait a year? How about within a couple of weeks, months?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I reflected on it a little bit more and decided, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. And that has a negative thing. A lot of people come back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you want to be a hermit? You're separating yourself from everything. You're going to go live in a cave." I'm like, "What? I never said that. I'm not going to go live in a cave or anything like that. I'm actually going to be able to do more for my community." And I'm realizing that even because it was kind of a scary thing. I'm like, hermit now? I was going to wait 15, 20 years when I'm older. I've slowed down. I'm a little bit young to be doing this hermit thing right now. So actually being out there and doing the stuff for the community, it's not for myself, it's for the community, is so important. Just like your truck drivers. What are you doing? You're delivering things. It's for people. You have a mission, and you're now out on the road. And what are you doing with that time when you're out on the road? What am I doing for my time when I'm out in the garden? There's a story of a couple of monks, probably more. I don't know. I only know this particular group. They made baskets, and they sold those baskets, and they took them out into the market every day or every couple of days. I'm not sure how long it took them to make a basket. But when they got done with those selling the baskets, they brought the proceeds back to the monastery, they brought the baskets back to the monastery, and then they burned those baskets. And the next day, they started over again, making more baskets. And then they'll take them out. They use the old baskets for the ones they made previously for firewood, basically, to heat up to cook their food and things like that. They had a mission. And what were they doing, though, while they were making those baskets? And that's the question. What are we doing in that isolation, in that time alone, in that time when we're by ourselves with God and ourselves and our thoughts? Are we putting earbuds in our ears and turning up that music so loud that it just keeps us going? Or are we putting something else in there? Are we thinking about the beauty of the creation around us? Are we looking at the good? Are we praying? Are we listening to God's calling? Because if we're constantly pumping ourselves with noise in isolation, that's what's filling that void, and that's not good because it comes and it goes. But God's eternal, like music, like chant. Chant is eternal. The way that chant's made up, if you've ever heard of Gregorian chant, there is no measure. There's no time. That's why we use Gregorian chant and singing. That's why it's beautiful. That's why I love doing that. And I try to teach my monks, the monks that are here at the monastery, about the chant, that it's flowing. It goes on and on and on. And that just influences everything else we do when we realize that and get in there. So, yeah, isolation, what all these things are important, and how do we handle that as when we're out there, when we're by ourselves? So I'm hoping that kind of helps.
Oh no, it helped immensely. Brother David Bryant joins us this morning, also known as the Desert Monk. I go back to the idea that you've actually touched on a lot of this as well, but I'm going to get even more specific and really head into some place where the silence exists. So we talk about the idea with music, that the music is in the meaning. The idea that, whatever exists in between each note is where the meaning really kind of resides. You talk about the Gregorian chant and the idea of, kind of being one, of even time slipping away. Time slips out of the Gregorian chant. You do so many things in regards to, the candle making, sheep caretaking. You've actually designed a solar irrigation system. And all of this stuff, like the men and women who drive trucks for a living, requires a lot of ongoing point-by-point maintenance, if that makes any sense, that you're actually having to go through point-by-point maintenance. And so I'm wondering how we, in developing our spiritual lives, are able to kind of recognize not so much the actions we are taking, but finding where the wisdom resides in between each step that we take, whether it is changing note or whether it is, building a candle, or whether it is mixing ourselves like among the sheep. How do we listen for the silences that you've talked about? How do we attune ourselves? Because there is a certain training that has to go on. We spend so much time in noise, Brother David, that we don't often know how to recognize the wisdom that comes inside of silence.
Well, that's a very good question, and it is a really hard thing. It is training. It is what we call the formation, and it starts now. It doesn't have to start tomorrow, or it didn't have to start 10 years ago, but it starts now. And that formation is what's going to pull us away from the noise, and we can start listening. So let's look at the monastic, the way when we're coming into the monastery, what happens here. It's different now than when I came in, because we really didn't have cell phones. In fact, we didn't have cell phones. There was no such thing as a cell phone when I came into being a monk, or any of these other things. In fact, the technology has gotten so intrusive now, it's actually hard for people to listen, because there's everything's grabbing for us, and lights flickering and things moving fast and all that. So it's different now. So I'm going to kind of speak about when I came in, and then maybe some ideas what we can do now, because it's just totally different. So when I came into the monastery, we had computers that were okay, 2000s computers, if anyone knows. They're okay. The dot-com boom was just taking off. And that's where internet and technology died for me, was in 2000. I have no idea what happened between the year 2000 and 2007. In fact, I'll say 2006. I have no idea. I didn't know what was going on. I was that disconnected during that era. In fact, I didn't even care. Yeah, I was still using a computer, but I had no idea. I can't remember when YouTube started, but I think it was within that time. I'm not going to look it up. I got the computer in front of me. But I believe YouTube started sometime in that era. So a lot of things happen. The cell phone, Apple, iPad, iPhones, all that stuff started within that era, if I'm correct. And when I came in, it was just, hey, you can't use the computer. You've got 1 hour a day to send emails or whatever. But that was a major part of it. That was it. You just can't use the computer. And then we had books. We had all these we have a huge library that we could go through and read things. So, there was a major disconnect that we had to start. And that's kind of what has to happen now. We have to make that decision. We need to break away from a lot of the technology. It doesn't mean we break away from society. It means we break away from those harmful technology. And I hate to even say this, but things like TikTok, what do? You get on there and you start scrolling, and then you look up and say, oh my gosh, it's 2 hours. What have you been doing? What did you do with those 2 hours? You gotta disconnect from that mess. YouTube is great. I understand that. A lot of times I'll put things on that people don't even care about. They wouldn't even dare to watch because it's boring. But I love it because it's learning, it's teaching. It's either I'm listening to some type of lecture on music or on technology, on flow of water through pipes. Oh my gosh, that's boring. But I love listening to that in the background while I'm working on something on the computer, because it's teaching me. Okay. Now, outside of that, you're not going to find me. I mean, once in a while, I may catch myself scrolling through something like Facebook at some stuff. But because I've had that formation, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Okay, bye, go away. And that's what's important, is that formation. Yes, you're going to slip up, you're going to scroll through. But what I've done too, and this is another key point, is that I kind of what I call curated my Facebook feed, so where I'm getting stuff that are local. Like I love seeing what the neighbors down the road are doing at their shop or things like that. And if I see other stupid stuff, I just delete it or tell it to go away, because I don't care about that. I want to know what the people around me are doing. I don't care about somebody going off and doing something stupid. And it's just, there's a lot of that mess, and you got to form yourself not to want to see that. And that's a hard thing to do. I'm a monk. So I had that formation. For you all out in the world, this is hard. This is really, really hard. And sometimes I feel bad for myself not being out there with you and fighting, because it's a fight. It really is. It's a fight. You're going out there and you're fighting this stuff more directly than we are. But don't be fooled. As monks, we still have to fight a lot, because our focus is on God, our prayers, the work that we do. In fact, in Benedictine world, it's called ora et labora. That is prayer and work. That's what we do. And there's a lot of things trying to get in our way to stop us from doing that. So don't think that just because I'm in a monastery that we don't have to fight too. But it's hard to look at what you all are doing and for me to sit here and say, oh wow, I want to be out there. I want to fight with you all, because it's a noble thing. You know, you're the ones that you've got to. What are you filling your time with? I've had the formation. I know I got to fill my time with God, with our readings, with our prayers, with the work that I'm doing. And while I'm out there working, just like I was talking about with the baskets, the guys that were doing the baskets, and then they would make them. What were they doing? They were praying. They were filling their time with what they fill themselves with. That is, if you're reading holy things, typically when you're out doing the work, you're filling that void with holy things. If you are filling yourself with horrible things, typically when you're out by yourself in isolation, you're going to fill that time with unholy things. That's formation. That's what we have to do. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, and not having formal formation makes it really hard. But I really look up to you all, because you're out there, you're fighting, and I've had that formation. Not a lot of people have had this type of formation. Supposedly, when you're in the church and you're doing these things when you're growing up, that's your formation, to go out there and fight the good fight. It's just that I took it a little bit further and became a monk. I was called to it now. I didn't really make that decision. I was called.
It feels like, brother. It feels times like there's that great line, "Blessed rage for silence," and and I will tell you right now, and I'm actually going to pick on my two producers here for a second. They struggle with it. They both struggle with silence. I struggle with it. My family struggles with it. The idea of let's all take a moment. Let's all just take a moment and kind of process what is going on, and just have a moment to kind of sit there. And it almost feels like, in the struggle you've kind of laid out for everybody, that it's almost this kind of rear guard, incremental battle, fighting for 10 seconds of silence today, 11 seconds of silence tomorrow, and on and on and on until finally we create a space for aura, until we create that space, until we give ourselves the aura of aura. The idea that we actually create a space where we reflexively pray is what it feels like in many ways. It's where we're headed, if that makes any sense. Making sense, brother?
Yes. Yeah. No, I understand. Yep. I mean, it's again, it's a hard thing. I won't add on to that.
Really quickly here, we're going to run out of time. We can find you, by the way, not just at the christdesert.org, but you have a YouTube channel, you have an Instagram presence, you are there, And in many ways, what you have to do because you are there is you have to almost kind of carve out space to make some noise. Is it the opposite problem? And then we got to say goodbye to you.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So what I do is I call it video bombing. I go out, I take my camera, I record stuff. It then sits on my computer, and then I decide to upload it at some point later. Sometimes a video could take nearly a month to 2 months to do because of the silence, because it's not my priority, but I want people to realize what's going on. So that's how I handle everything. Yes, you can find me if you just go to Google or Bing and just type in The Desert Monk. That's with the at the beginning. You'll find all the different things, the websites and all that. And so what I try to do is just, hey, this is cool. I think people would like this. I'm showing you the beauty of the area around me, and I want to share it. So that's all I'm doing, really. And occasionally I'll put reflections and things that pop up to my mind, and I'm like, hey, this is important. I think people should see this. I haven't read this anywhere else. Let me share it. I am not a priest. Let's get this clear, because a lot of people think all monks are priests. I'm not. I am a brother. That means that I do the work of the monastery. I pray with brothers here, but I'm not a priest. I'm not a theologian. None of that. I'm not anything special. I'm just a monk who likes sharing what's out there. So.
Brother, by the way, I just want to let you know, as the person who actually picked St. Columban as his confirmation saint, I completely get where you're coming from. Guys, you can also go to the Desert Monk, brdavid.wordpress.com, and get photos, videos of life, prayer, and work, the Desert Monk, and chants and chisels. Thank you. We're going to get you back on really, really soon, because I feel it's a conversation we need to dig more into. Thank you, Brother David, so much.
All right. Thank you.